I remember things and I'm interested in things and can recall things that I'm interested in, that are part of my mental makeup that allow me not to have this trigger that occasionally goes off to suggest a blindness. I could give you every braking distance, every gear change, every corner in the Nürburgring in Germany, 187 corners every lap. And I could tell you everything about it now. It's a strange anomaly, because if I were asked to do a TV commercial, which I quite often do in America today, for me to remember the lines requires me to write them down, longhand, very slowly, then repeat after me, Jackie, then write them down again. Now, I can remember most of my commercials, and yet today I was going, one of our young mechanics had a dreadful road accident last night, and somebody told me how to get to where the accident was and where the car was. I wouldn't have been able to get there in a million years. I couldn't fill out a passport form very well. Now, these are frustrations that I still have today that still hang over, and yet other things, like my motor racing, don't afflict me at all. But as I said, the alphabet, I don't know the words of our national anthem, Terry. I don't know them. I just couldn't repeat them. And I don't know the words of the Lord's Prayer. And I said it at school from the age of 5 to 15, because I left at 15 because I was such a disaster. Great relief to the Dumbarton Academy and Jackie Stewart. But these are simple things, and yet they're there. And the terrible thing about the affliction is that so many young people who have before them the potential of doing great things are suffocated by the rest of society and by the educational system. And that's why the British Dyslexia Association are doing such a great job in attracting attention to this, because watching this show tonight, there will be families who have been told in report cards that their child is slow, is lazy, and is just in trouble. Now, those people, if they were to call the British Dyslexia Association, get a number in their age, in their region, to be tested first of all, their child to be tested, and then there may be help for them by a specialised teacher who can see them round this corner. Because I never get over it, but I find ways round it. And most people can do that, and then hopefully those people could reach that true potential.
Well, I hope it does give heart, and I'm sure it will, see somebody like you. And of course, Winston Churchill was a dyslexic. Do you think it does develop other things in people, though? I mean, you're very articulate. Your memory, as you say, can be very good for things that you're interested in. And dyslexic people are often very highly intelligent people. Yes, the IQ has got nothing to do with it. And this comes out very accurately in tests that are done for dyslexia. Your IQ can be very high. In the case of Churchill, what a wonderful man he was at speaking, one of the greatest orators the world has ever known. And the reason that he was that, having a learning disability perhaps, was that people don't understand what you're trying to say, because you have in your mind that they're having the same problem that you had. So you tend to colour your descriptions of things in such a fashion that you become an artist in words in a way, as he became. When he coined the phrase, while in Mississippi, that the Iron Curtain was dropping in Europe. Now, how better could you explain what was happening to that Eastern Bloc than saying an Iron Curtain had dropped? Now, that was his tremendous ability of painting that picture. Now, you said that your two boys, I mean, is dyslexia something that you inherit? You can. It can be hereditary. It can come from a long labour in birth. It can come from a jaundice birth. It's got a variety of different sources. It's between the left and right-hand side of the brain, the communication system, the wiring seems to have gone wrong at times. But if it's recognised at an early age, wherever possible, you've got a much better chance of overcoming it. Right. Very complex. You were talking about your sons and saying both of them have it to a greater or lesser extent. Now, Paul is going to be a racing driver, and he has dyslexia as well. So, although you don't realise it, I'm beginning, it's a bit like this is your life, but in fact, Paul is with us. So let's have him on. Paul's with us? Paul Stewart. How are you?
Come by.
I left it a little while ago. I said, I've got to rush over. I'm meeting Terry Wogan.
I know it's a surprise to you, but you're following the old man's footsteps. First of all, the dyslexia. Presumably your father was more understanding about it, in your case, than people were to him.
Well, only when it was discovered that I had a dyslexic problem. Before that, I was still labelled by my parents as being, and I still frequently am, as being a dumb and an idiot. But until it was identified, it was, my parents didn't understand it.
See, you were just as intolerant. With
exactly, and I was trying to maybe bring that up in future chats here, because I think lots of parents, even who have had the problem that I had, young Mark, had even a greater problem than you. Paul's graduated from university, having to work harder than perhaps most. But Mark, the trouble he had was much graver than yours in a way. And Helen and I were very intolerant at times. And yet here was I, having suffered from it, and yet still not responding in the sympathetic fashion I should have done.
Well, tell me, let's move on to the racing. Are you as sympathetic to his ambitions as a racing driver? Now, how does Helen feel, having seen you risk your life? How does she feel about her beloved son doing the same thing? How does
that question is often raised, and oddly enough, I think it's maybe just as difficult for my father, because he's never had to watch someone that he really cared for drive on a racetrack. And it's something that my mother frequently says, because she obviously does not want me to do it, but she sometimes says, well, you know, your father's not too keen on it either, because...
You don't want him to do it?
No, he never did. I did everything to avoid it happening. Now that he's doing it, I want to do it in the most positive way to make him as safe and as... I've got the best mechanics to look after him and so forth. But I would rather, quite frankly, he would have done anything else. I wish he had done
People
something.
will say it's easy for him because you've got the money necessary to help him.
No, I don't give him any money for his racing. He's found the money. I help him through sponsorship. He's got very solid sponsorship. But
Paul's a very good Scot. He wasn't willing to give me any money.
I told him that right at the start. We've managed to do it well, and he's done it very well, and he's represented us as a family very well and presented himself very positively, and he's doing very well. I'm very proud of him doing so well. But I would rather that he was a talk show host.
That can be dangerous work as well. So he's obviously been a hard taskmaster to you, but obviously a great encourager now that he's decided that that's what you want to do, and you're staying with Formula 3
for 1990. Yes, I've decided that it's the best way for my career. In other words, to enable me to reach the top, in other words, Formula 1. So I'm hoping this year will be a good year for me, and hopefully learn a lot more.
Well, I hope it will, but it's a big mountain to climb. First of all, it's a difficult and a highly competitive sport, and secondly, you're following your father, and you haven't taken the chicken's way out and taken an assumed name or anything. Do you sometimes feel the challenge is too much?
To be honest with you, I never think of what my father's achieved. I admire that greatly, but people ask me, what does it feel like, you know, do you have to live up to your father's success? And I never ever think about it. I just think about what I have to achieve, and never try to think, well, my father did this when he was in Formula 3, or did this at this point in his career. It never crosses my mind. And
you've overcome what we were talking about mainly in this interview, the dyslexic aspect. And I'm sure both of you are a tremendous example and a help, will be a help tonight by what you've said to dyslexics and to people who are not sure about what's wrong with their children, that they're not doing as well as they might. So thank you both for joining us. It's a great pleasure to see you.
Thank you very much.
The Stewarts.
Thank you.
Well, it's time to sustain the racing motif and bring down the checkered flag and another mad rush. Join us on the starting grid on Friday at 7 for another fast-moving Farrago without a pit stop. It's all good stuff, isn't it? Yeah, I wrote most of that, you know. Among the guests will be Jerry Hall and Big George Wendt, Norm, from Cheers. So we'll see you then, Friday at 7. Bye-bye. Thank you.